Members of the Irish Republican Army were serving time and quietly plotting.
I just found the scariest video on YouTube. We are reacting to Fugitives today, and you won't believe what happens at the 12-minute mark. See the escape plan, the hidden footage, and finally the moment everyone is talking. I'm not waiting any longer. Let's get into it in 3, 2, 1.
A daring prison escape by helicopter. A monster that fled into the
by
woods, leaving
helicopter
just
crazy.
one sordid clue. A disgraced movie director with a checkered past. 39 of the 535 criminals on the FBI's most wanted list have never been
that we
caught.
don't even
Let's
know
investigate
actually.
the most insane
I don't know.
Born in 1966 and raised on a farm, Vasilis Paliokostas and his brother Nico shared their quiet upbringing to become small-time criminals, gradually moving up from stealing video players to low-level bank.
Y'all, becoming a small-time criminal at that age is ridiculous.
Robberies. Then in 1992 they went nuclear. Fed up with Greece's financial status and wealth gap, the brothers busted into a state-owned bank
then they started knowing
armed with an AK-47. They walked out 3 minutes later with close to $500,000, making it the biggest heist in Greek history. Not bad for a few minutes' work, right? But it's what they did during their escape that truly made them famous. As Vasily and Nico sped away, they started throwing wads of cash to stunned passers-by. This aggressive form of money redistribution.
Why are y'all throwing the money away? So you're telling me that y'all are criminals who take money and then just throw them away like nothing? Then what's the point of you all stealing the money in the first place?
Turned them from sinister outlaws into local legends.
What's the point
Greece's answer to
stealing the money for?
But things were just getting started.
Like,
in 1995, they kidnapped billionaire factory owner Alexander Haitoglu. After collecting a tasty ransom of $87 million, he was returned unharmed and said he actually quite enjoyed their company. Good to know there's no hard feelings, right? Rather than lavish cars and expensive homes, though, the brothers gave a lot of the ransom money out to local farmers and the homeless. But after several years hiding from authorities in the hills, Vasily's luck eventually ran out when he was arrested during a traffic accident in 2000 and sentenced to 25 years behind bars.
Even though y'all doing good for society,
in 2006, the Korydallos maximum security prison in Piraeus was thrown into chaos when a helicopter landed in the prison yard. Vasilis and another convict hopped in, and the chopper took back to the air and disappeared. The pilot was later found and taken in for questioning, where he explained that 2 men had paid him $1,600 for a ride over Athens, but a few minutes after takeoff they pulled out a gun and grenade. It turns out one of the men was none other than Vasily's brother Nikos, who roped the terrified pilot into performing Greece's first airborne breakout. Sadly, this brotherly reunion wouldn't last long. Just a few months later, Nikos was arrested and sentenced to a staggering 197 years behind bars. Fast forward to 2008, and another CEO kidnapping later, Vasilis was caught again and thrown back into prison. By now, he was an unlikely national hero with crowds of people rallying for his release. Lucky for them, they got exactly what they wanted.
They only doing that because he's like Robin Hood, where he still gave it to the community and people love the way he doing for them.
Overhead.
I guess, I don't know.
Guard shot at it, but a female passenger fired back and they couldn't a shot before Vasilis and the same inmate who'd escaped with him before scaled a rope ladder she dropped
happened to them in real life.
Vasilis escaped prison via chopper twice. And it was the same prison. Talk about a bad look.
Wait, is
Turns
this the
out the
same
woman in
chopper
the
that we
helicopter
saw
was
earlier?
his fellow escapee's
It gotta be the
partner,
same
and she
chopper we saw earlier.
commandeered by threatening the pilot with a grenade. While his crime spree seems to have halted over the last decade, Vasilis remains at large to this day. If this weren't true, I'd swear it was the plot of some cheesy Hollywood movie. In 1997, John Rufo looked like your average computer guy from Brooklyn.
I don't know who that name is.
Bespectacled and probably with a floppy disk or two in his pocket protector. But behind that geeky exterior was one of the biggest con artists in U.S. history. His master scam started when Rufo teamed up with former Philip Morris tobacco company.
If y'all ever learn y'all history and books and everything in school, what y'all think was the biggest con or the biggest scam in USA history?
company executive Edward Reiners. They went to multiple banks claiming to be working on a top-secret revolutionary smoke-free cigarette that Rufo's firm would supply computers to help achieve. Convinced, the banks funded the project to the mind-blowing tune of $350 million. The computers never bought. The research, total fiction.
Wait.
Going
Is that
straight
more
towards fancy wines and extravagant
7
vacations.
million?
But how was Rufo planning on paying back the loans? By betting a load of it on Wall Street, of course. However, his stock market skills didn't quite match his scamming chops, and after failing hard to repay any of his investors, he was sentenced to 17 years in prison. But this is when things get brain-meltingly stupid. Despite stealing the equivalent of $500 million in today's money, after the court hearing, Rufo was given the gentleman's option of reporting himself to prison. And guess what? He didn't. Shocker. Instead, on the day he was supposed to arrive, he rented a Ford Taurus, dropped off his ankle monitor at the designated spot, was caught on CCTV pulling $600 from an ATM, and was never seen again. His car was later found in long-term parking at JFK. So how does someone disappear forever with just $600? Authorities suspect he had a substantial secret escape stash, as some $13 million.
He already had a big whopper stash somewhere, probably in a warehouse or somewhere deep where nobody can find, just in case if he need that extra money.
Cash was never found. But here's the real kicker. When Rufo was first arrested, they set his bail at a steep $10 million. But his wife, along with multiple family members, all offered their 6 homes up to cover the bail. So when Rufo disappeared, all 6 were seized by the government.
Your own family give up all 6 of their houses, not family, wife. For you? Oh, you definitely got delusional wife and delusional family.
Ouch. If he's still alive, he'd be in his 70s by now.
Now I realize the family is delusional.
Otherwise, the police are going to be the least of his worries. To say 39-year-old mother of 2 Tammy Palmer had a difficult relationship with her husband John and his family would be an understatement. But after having 2 children together in a small house in Stony Point, New York, the situation worsened beyond repair, and Tammy filed a restraining order against John. But the house didn't belong to either of them. It was on property owned by John's 72-year-old dad, Eugene Palmer. Eugene, who lived right next door to Tammy, wasn't thrilled that his son had been forced to leave. To get back at her, he allegedly cut her power. Understandably angry, she responded by honking her car horn outside his house in the early hours of the morning. It was war. But things finally reached a tipping point when Tammy allegedly threatened to divorce John and sue Eugene for his land as part of the settlement. And on September 24th, 2012, a neighbor called 911.
Out the house.
911, where's your emergency? I heard a shot, a lot of screaming, another shot, no more screaming, and another shot.
Tammy had been walking her 2 kids to the school bus outside their house. After they'd gone, she started heading home when 3 shots were fired from someone hiding in the woods. Tragically, Tammy never made it home, and the person responsible was Eugene Palmer. After the incident, he went to his sister's house and confessed.
It was Eugene. I thought her father died, but instead, Eugene shot. Damn.
Not that he felt remorse. On his way out, he asked her to wait an hour before calling the cops to give him a head start. His truck was found abandoned outside Harriman State Park, and bloodhounds followed his trail to a campsite. Soon after, however, the trail went cold. Some think Eugene hitched a ride and vanished. Others say he never left the park at all. The guy was an experienced outdoorsman, and with 45,000 acres of woods at his disposal, it's not impossible he went full Rambo. Even detectives admitted they couldn't search the entire park. That said, many, including his family, believe he died in the woods.
He could
he was
survive,
elderly, diabetic.
But with his experience in the woods environment, even if he did die, he probably might survive a little longer, but he probably died due to natural causes and the age he had.
Not exactly the holy trinity of survival. But then, why leave your vehicle abandoned and flee into the woods in the first place? The whole situation seems odd to me. Eugene remained on the FBI's most wanted list for 10 years until they quietly removed him in 2022. Whether he escaped or expired, his fate remains a mystery to this day. But that's got me thinking, who holds the record for the longest time on the run? Well, that dubious honor goes to John Patrick Hannon, who's been wanted for a whopping 70 years. Way back in 1955, when he was just 22, Hannon was sent to HM Prison, the Vern in Dorset, England, for car theft. But after just a few weeks, it was clear he wasn't exactly cut out for the whole prison life thing. 30 days into his sentence, Hannon and fellow inmate Gwyneth Thomas assaulted 2 officers, scaled the walls using knotted sheets, and ran for the hills. Once they were a fair distance, they broke into a gas station and, after a quick change of clothes, kicked back with some beer and cigarettes, enjoying their well-earned freedom. Sadly for them, their little escape party was cut short. Police were quickly on their trail, setting up roadblocks and sending tracking dogs. Gwyneth was caught just 24 hours later when the pair were spotted by a passing driver. But Hannon, he somehow managed to slip through the cracks. It's assumed he fled to his native Ireland, and over 70 years later, he's still on the run, smashing every other escapee record.
70 years later, he's still doing the same thing and still on the run? Jeez, I wish he was actually alive.
The wildest part of all, Hannon was only supposed to serve 21 months. That's right, he traded a short stint in the slammer for a lifetime of being on the run. Not sure if that's a good trade, but hey, it's definitely one for the history books. Speaking of history, we all know about the Salem witch trials, right? But did you know Ireland had its own fiery fiasco 400 years earlier, complete with demon worship and an innocent person going up in smoke? Dame Alice Keitler was born in 1263 in Kilkenny, and 17 years later in 1280, she married a rich merchant named William Outlaw. That wouldn't last. Just 5 years in, he died of a sudden illness. Wasting no time, Alice shackled up with another wealthy merchant, but guess what? They suffered a similarly sudden fate. This cycle continued until Alice had been widowed and remarried 5 times in 36 years. So when her 5th husband suddenly fell ill, people understandably suspected foul play. Not much is known about each husband's passing, but we do know husband number 5 was losing his hair and nails. These could be symptoms of mercury poisoning, which wouldn't have been too hard for a wealthy woman like Alice to procure. Then again, they could also be caused by a naturally occurring iron deficiency. So was Alice taking out her own husbands? I'd call it a coin toss. Remember, life expectancy...
I definitely gonna call it a coin toss, or life can span so short that you probably might not even know about it.
In the 13th century. But the bigger problem for Alice wasn't her choice of husbands, it was her growing number of seriously peeved stepkids. You see, along with being suspects in their own father's passing, their wills kept conveniently being changed at the last minute, leaving the lion's share of the inheritance to none other than Alice Keitler. So when her latest husband fell ill, they reached the very reasonable conclusion that Alice must in fact be a witch. The stepkids reached out to Archbishop Richard de la Dredi, a fiery figure who was close to the Pope and possessed a ruthless determination to root out heresy. He believed every word and incited a public uproar demanding the punishment of Alice for her obvious devil worship. With their backs against the wall, the Kilkenny government had no choice but to order an inquiry from which a whole bunch of crazy details emerged. Like, you know, her gaining demonic powers from a demon named Robin. This demon would appear as a dog, cat, or man, and it was alleged that Alice took it into her bed and did unspeakable acts with it. Talk about shocking. A little too shocking. It seems most of these facts came from just one person, Petronilla de Meath, Alice's former maidservant. She confessed to helping with Alice's sorcery, but only under brutal duress. Safe to say the locals were scandalized.
Do y'all understand what he really talking about, this girl? Get it. Like, she had 5, like, I don't even understand what it is he actually trying to tell us.
Nila became the first woman in Ireland to be burned at the stake for witchcraft. Alice's fate, however, is a lot less clear. Most believe she bolted for Britain the same year Petronilla was burned to avoid meeting the same fate. From there, she was never seen or heard from again. Maybe she changed her name and continued finding sickly suitors. Or maybe she went down to the fiery pits of hell to be with her one true love. It's hard to say. We've looked at some wild prison escapes, but now get ready for the biggest jailbreak in British history. In 1983, HM Prison Maze, just west of Belfast, was considered Europe's most...
I just realized, going to that prison, it's going to be hard to escape that prison. Cause how it looked like a maze, it's gonna be difficult for you to find a way to escape.
Facility with 18-foot walls, barbed wire fences, and steel gates
See, I told y'all.
fortress. Inside
It's
H
definitely
Block
gonna be
7,
hard to
members
escape.
of the Irish Republican Army were serving time and quietly plotting one of the boldest jailbreaks in history. First, they got jobs as orderlies, secretly mapping the prison layout and befriending the guards to get any tidbit of information they could. Then they slowly smuggled in guns and knives from IRA members on the outside. Once they had a clear layout and the tools for the job, all they had to do was wait for the perfect moment to strike. September 25th was game time. With the advantage of surprise, the orderlies swiftly and stealthily overpowered the unprepared guards in H7. After herding them into the games room, 12 prisoners swapped uniforms with the officers. Then, when the daily food delivery truck arrived, the disguised prisoners pulled their guns on them. So far, everything had gone without a hitch, but this next step would be the most dangerous. They crammed 37 prisoners in the back of the van, while one of the disguised prisoners rode shotgun with the delivery driver. Their hope was the actual guard stationed at the next two security gates would recognize the driver and simply wave them through without checking the van. Lo and behold, it worked. They sailed through both checkpoints exactly as they planned. From there, all they needed to do was pull up at the main gate, capture the guards in the control room, and cruise out the final exit. No problem, right? But something unforeseeable happened. They arrived at the gate during a shift change, meaning that right after they finished cuffing one set of guards, a whole new batch walked in. A chaotic brawl broke out, and amidst the fighting, the prisoners just managed to open the final gate. But then bad luck struck again. Just as the gate opened, a couple of officers passing by saw what was happening and blocked the exit with their vehicles.
Damn! The plan did work? It worked for a second. That was the boldest plan ever. But it was the shortest, boldest plan I ever seen.
It through the open gate before scaling the outer fence and running for their lives. In the end, 35 out of 38 made it over the fence. 19 were caught that day, but the rest scattered to the wind. Some hid out in Ireland, others fled to Europe and America.
They really planned it for so long, and it worked.
What happened to them? Maybe they met an unfortunate end during their escape, or maybe they decided to keep their heads permanently low. One prison break is enough for a lifetime. The Maze prison was permanently shut in 2000, but this jailbreak, still legendary. Over 500 criminals have appeared on the FBI's most wanted list, but few have stayed on as long as Jason Derek Brown,
but don't just say
surfer
legendary
bro turned fugitive. Born in California and raised in a Mormon household, Jason looked like he belonged on a beach calendar, tan, smiley, and not a worry in sight. He had just one problem. He was completely broke. Despite holding a master's degree in international business and owning 2 companies, they were less cash cows and more cash sinks.
So, he did pass college for business, got 2 companies, but they not hitting the amount of money that he thought his company was going to hit. Alright? So, what you about to tell me that he actually done?
Goals. With debt piling up, Jason, it seems, chose a lethal solution to his problem. On November 29th, 2004, 24-year-old armored car guard Robert Palomares was collecting weekend deposits outside a Phoenix movie theater. He was carrying $56,000 when a masked man suddenly stepped out from behind the theater, opened fire, grabbed the money, and fled on a dirt bike. Palomares didn't survive. The bike was found hidden in a bush half a mile away from the incident, and prints pulled from the handlebars were a match for Jason Brown.
I hate people that be forgetting to wipe off their fingerprint. It will be really hard for the detective to actually trace that vehicle or weapon to you.
A citywide manhunt. Police managed to identify that Jason had flown Arizona in his BMW before ditching it and switching it to a Cadillac he'd stashed in a Las Vegas storage unit. After that, poof, he was gone. In 2007, Jason made the FBI's most wanted list, and the Bureau slapped a $100,000 reward on his head.
If they're
not
alive,
a single solid lead came in.
Or
so
they still on the run.
Jason is fluent in French, so it's possible he hightailed it out of the States and is hiding in some remote part of the French Alps. But there's reason to believe he might still be in the U.S. The last confirmed sightings of Jason was in 2008 when a friend spotted him at a stoplight in Salt Lake City, right near where he used to live. Could he have been hiding in plain sight night this whole time? Honestly, your guess is as good as the FBI's, because after nearly 2 decades of chasing shadows, Jason was removed from the most wanted list. While their case is still supposedly active, they say keeping him on the list wasn't making any difference. You know, someone's truly off-grid when even the FBI's given up on finding them. Jason would be about 56 today, so hey, there's still a chance he could be caught, just probably not by the FBI.
Find him.
From one lifelong fugitive to another, let's look at a very different approach to a bank robbery. The year was 1983, and 25-year-old Victor Manuel Garana was working as a cash collector for Wells Fargo in Connecticut. One day while working in the cash terminal with his colleague James McKeon and Timothy Garrard, Victor casually asked to see one of their guns. His partner, not thinking twice, handed it over. Victor, suddenly a lot less relaxed, pointed the gun at both of them and said to hit the floor. Plot twist, Victor wasn't just an opportunist. He'd actually been recruited by a Puerto Rican independence group called Los Macheteros, and this whole heist was planned by them to fund their cause. Victor tied them both up, put bags over their heads, and then, in a strange turn, injected them with a mix of water and aspirin to knock them out. While the injections didn't work, neither man was about to leap up and get into a kicking match. With them subdued, Victor stuffed $7 million in cash into his car and drove off. Just like that, he pulled off what was at the time the largest cash robbery in U.S. history. By the time his co-workers wiggled free and called the cops, Victor was already long gone. Authorities think he first crossed into Mexico and then made his way to Cuba, whose government was allegedly in on the whole plan. Naturally, the FBI were very interested. Over the years, almost everyone involved in the plot was either arrested or no longer around, all except Victor. He's managed to stay off the grid so effectively that his face remained on the FBI's most wanted list for 32 years. Will he ever get caught? Honestly, I wouldn't bet on it. Haven't we all dreamed at one point of having a fresh start and being someone else? Well, the crazy story of Frank Freshwater shows there's some things you can't run away from. Back in 1959, Frank pleaded guilty to second-degree manslaughter after hitting someone with his car while speeding. Instead of a full prison sentence, he was given 5 years probation, but he broke it and was incarcerated. He spent his first few months at the...
Why y'all be breaking your probation? Why y'all break your house arrest? Like, house arrest and probation is a lesson than anything.
Ohio State Reformatory in Mansfield. Ironically, the setting is Shawshank Redemption. Before being transferred to the minimum security Sandusky Honor Farm in Ohio for good behavior. Big mistake. On September 30th, just 7 months after arriving, he escaped. Unable to return to his old life, Frank reinvented himself as William Cox. For the next 56 years, he lived a quiet life working as a truck driver. Under his fake identity...
So, on your fake identity, you work as a truck driver, making good, I'm talking about good money, make a good wife, and have a good family and nobody knows.
And was even best man at a friend's wedding. All the while, people knew him as friendly old Grandpa Will. He even managed to receive Social Security benefits under his new identity. But if me knowing all this wasn't already a tip-off, Frank's luck wouldn't last forever. In 2015, the cold case was reopened and detectives put 2 and 2 together, realizing William Cox and Frank Freshwaters were probably the same guy. But how could they prove it? Well, they had one piece of evidence that you can't change. Freshwater's fingerprints, which they'd gotten way back when he was arrested. They tracked him down living peacefully in a secluded trailer in Melbourne, Florida, and concocted a ruse getting him to sign papers so they could check his fingerprints. When they came back as a perfect match, they had him dead to rights. So at 79 years old, Frank was arrested, leaving his family and friends absolutely stunned.
He definitely gonna die in prison.
But he wasn't locked away for long. Despite the misgivings of his victim's son, the court ruled that Frank had been a well-adjusted member of society since his escape and let him go free. So while he did get caught eventually, he's now the subject of the longest successful manhunt in U.S. history.
What I'm hearing is, even though he did a crime, he was a free man for so long. Like, you can't break that.
I'm sure he's thrilled.
Now, if it was a
sometimes the real mystery isn't how the criminal got away.
Yeah.
It's how on earth the cops can't seem to find them. Case in point, the Murray River Police District in Southeast Australia, who put out a social media plea asking the public for help tracking down 24-year-old James Sutton, who was wanted after skipping a court hearing for domestic assault and property damage.
But if you argue like too late
where things get a bit awkward, because this is what James Sutton looks like. Wow, Mr. Beast has really dropped off. With a face that looks like the wall of a high school bathroom, naturally, the internet roasted the police for needing help finding this guy. And it seems their online shaming worked because 2 weeks later they finally managed to track Sutton down at a home in New South Wales. But just in case you thought that was a one-time thing, the Melbourne police put out another outrageous public appeal, this time looking for 23-year-old Ethan Bramble after a bar scuffle. Holy cow, is that a look. Ethan's been dubbed the most modified youth in the world, with tattoos covering 98% of his body, including his eyeball.
I want to know something. What you get out tattooing your eye? What do you get out tattooing your whole face? What do you get out of putting big giant hoops like this size in your earlobe? What do you get out of it? You think you're cool? Cool? No, you're not cool. You just make yourself look stupid.
He's also got a split tongue and even had his belly button removed. Despite all this, the official police description only read Caucasian with a thin build. That's no mention of the demon eyes, not even a note about the missing navel. After the police reached out to the public, Ethan publicly taunted them to his 200,000 followers, posting, "You'll never catch me" on Facebook, and taking pictures by police fans. He even called into a local TV station just to talk about his case. It's unclear whether the police are still trying to catch Ethan, who still posts regularly on social media, but over the last few years he's started getting some of his tattoos removed. There goes any chance of nabbing him now. Australia isn't the only place with a visually impaired police force, though. Back in 2024, the Adams County Sheriff's Department in Colorado couldn't find this fat-headed fugitive. Darren, 33, was wanted for battery, theft, and driving on a suspended license.
But how you got that
exactly
big
criminal mastermind
like
material. But what really stood out was, well, what literally stood out. My medical guess is it's probably a benign cyst or lipoma, but despite the public outreach, there's still no update on the search. Just how? I'd suggest looking for a guy wearing an oversized headband. Who doesn't love the idea of being a pirate? Yet one of the most infamous seafaring outlaws of all time seemed to disappear without a trace. The aptly named Pirate King Avery. Born in 1653, Henry Avery spent many years working both in the Royal Navy and as a privateer around the Caribbean. Until one day he thought, screw it, and turned to sailing the seas as a pirate, robbing the same ships he'd once been hired to protect. But in 1695 he decided to go big, sailing for the Indian Ocean in the hopes of spotting the greatest prize of them all, the Ganges Sawai, a massive treasure ship owned by Aurangzeb, Emperor of India, and the literal richest guy on earth. On the 7th of September, Avery's wish was answered. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned by the ship's 400 guards and 80 cannons, Avery got a lucky break when one of the Ganges Sawai's cannons exploded, causing a sudden fire. At the same time, his own ship managed to hit a lucky shot on the Ganges' main mast, disabling it. In the chaos, Avery's crew boarded and ended up making off with a fortune worth $200 million today. A massive $1,300 bounty was posted for the captain's head.
Why is this like One Piece? What we need? A $13 million war. This is not Luffy. This is not Ace. This is a real-life pirate.
While many of his former crew would be called over the years and given an aggressive neck extension, Avery himself was never heard from again. Some say he fled to Madagascar, others say he snuck back to his hometown in England and died broke. But a recent discovery has popularized a new theory that he took up a career as a spy for the British. A coded letter allegedly from Avery in 1700 revealed that he gave up part of his fortune in exchange for a pardon and the chance to serve the crown. It apparently describes protecting Protestant England against a Catholic invasion from France and an unknown enemy trying to seize the throne. And half the letter still hasn't been deciphered, so who knows what other juicy details they might find. My bet is he also teamed up with Bigfoot. Now let's look at a criminal who couldn't have done a worse job at escaping if he tried. In 2012, 55-year-old Victor Espinoza was a gang member with a very colorful criminal record, including substance possession to attempted homicide. But it was an even more sinister crime that finally landed him in hot water. One day, a 10-year-old kid was walking to soccer practice with his older cousin when Victor, a total stranger, approached them. This huge 425-pound man lured the kid closer and then grabbed him by the arm, trying to haul him away. Luckily, the kid managed to break free, and the two ran straight to his soccer coach to explain what had happened. The coach ran out, spotted the would-be kidnapper still loitering around the park, and tackled him to the ground. Victor narrowly slipped away with cuts and bruises, but things were far from over. Police kicked off a manhunt, sending in a helicopter to search the area, and quickly found the exhausted man hiding in a backyard not far from the scene. Apparently, due to his weight, the would-be kidnapper couldn't even climb the fence to make an escape.
Damn, so you're telling me he couldn't even run it far away to escape? Why? This is the first time I ever seen someone that big try to escape and couldn't even make a good escape.
Talk about embarrassing. He was charged with false imprisonment and child annoyance, and it turns out he was also in a gang, which boosted his sentence further. Dumbest criminal ever. Everyone at some point has dreamed of working in the pictures, but few movie legends rose and fell quite as spectacularly as wanted fugitive Edward Montoro. Born in Atlanta in 1928, Montoro dreamed of being a pilot until a plane crash in '68 grounded him for good. While in hospital, Montero decided to trade a career up in the clouds for one among the stars. He kicked off his movie career directing a sleazy low-budget comedy called Getting Into Heaven. When that movie turned a profit, Montoro decided to pivot from making movies to distributing them, starting his own company, Film Ventures International. FBI made its mark by distributing bloody, cheesy foreign flicks and creating knockoffs that barely pretended to be original. One of their earliest success stories was getting the U.S. rights for the Italian Exorcist knockoff Beyond the Door. Despite paying just $100,000 for it, the movie raked in $15 million. They followed this with the self-produced 1976 horror movie Grizzly.
Why are people stealing and making so much money from
Jaws, but with a bear, which made $40 million and became the highest-grossing independent film ever at the time. So far, so good. So how the hell did Montoro become one of the most wanted fugitives of all time? Well, after Grizzly, he was convinced they were about to have their biggest hit yet.
He's doing all of this, right? Then what made him become one of the fugitives on this list? Because there's no reason for someone to be doing something good like this and become a fugitive.
Out Jaws ripoff, the Italian movie The Last Shark, which he renamed Great White and promoted it like their lives depended on it. We're talking stickers, calendars, and shark-themed dollar bills. They even set up a pool in the lobby at Caesar's Palace filled with real sharks. But Film Venture International finally bit off more than they could chew. You see, these imitations didn't go unnoticed by the bigger studios. They'd been slapped with copyright infringement suits before, but this time it would actually stick. After dumping $4 million into marketing Great White, the movie had to be pulled. Still, this didn't spell doom for the company. Their true downfall would come from within. After years of success, Montoro, who'd once been a very conservative spender, suddenly started living large. He bought fancy suits and even a 42-foot yacht to wine.
When y'all become famous, one day y'all be famous, right? Make sure y'all budget on the money. Make sure if y'all want something, say this. Do I really need that? Or do I really want that?
But that's one hell of a work expense. With his funds already stretched thin, things went from bad to worse when his wife of many years filed for divorce. This meant she'd be taking half his assets, including the company. This was finally enough to push him over the edge. And in 1984, Montero stole $1 million in FBI funds and vanished. He'd been learning Spanish at the time, and most assume he skipped off to Mexico, sipping margaritas with his stolen fortune. FBI, meanwhile, collapsed under debt and filed for bankruptcy in 1985, eventually getting scooped up by the I&I Entertainment Group. Montoro's never been found,
just don't know Spanish like that, but
maybe he's still
one day I'll learn Spanish, one day.
Thinking about the glory days of grizzly bears and great whites.
Yo, if that video was wild, you haven't seen anything yet. I put my funniest reaction right here in this playlist, and YouTube thinks you will love this special video next. Click one of those, hit the sub button if you are new, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.